My favorite way to eat green beans is the traditional Appalachian style, which means that you cook them for a long time. You usually season them with a piece of meat. You cook them until they're really soft. Now that's a texture some people don't like, but that's the most popular way that they are made. Green beans are made and consumed in the mountains of Appalachia. I have a video about that, and I will link to that so that you can go watch it. It was probably after I was married, or maybe right before I was married, that I actually had green beans in a different way, made in a different way. Granny never made them any way except the traditional Appalachian way. The other two variations that I would have had growing up, really maybe the two variations would have been dried green beans, which are leather britches, but again, they're cooked in that same way for a long period of time until they're soft. And then the other way would have been pickled beans. So pickled beans and corn, or either just pickled beans. And that was it. I never really knew that you could eat a green bean raw, or that you could eat it like where it's not so soft and mushy. That was just the way that I was raised and how I grew up. Well, when I met Matt and I started dating him, his mother, Miss Cindy, she showed me a different way that you could roast green beans, or you could saute them on top of the stove, and where they still had kind of a crunch to them. And that was my first introduction to that. And I liked them okay. I still didn't like them as good as what I'd grown up with, those that are cooked for a long period of time. But I did like them okay. So once me and Matt were married, I began cooking them like that sometimes. If I was in a hurry, most of the time is when I would do that. So over the years, I've discovered when I like them best like that, roasted, is when I'm in a hurry, when I'm cooking a meal that I want to hurry up and don't have that long period of time to actually cook the green beans for several hours. And also when the green beans are young, when they're really young, I think they're better like that. When they get fuller and the bean inside is bigger, they're not as good roasted, I don't think. So that's when I typically make them, is when the green beans just begin to come in, like earlier in the summer they did, or this time of the year. This is the first year that we've ever had fresh green beans this late. This is September. So we tore all our green beans out in one little bed and replanted them. So those beans are beginning to come in now. They're rattlesnake beans. So a rattlesnake bean is a really big bean. It grows very long. It's really big. And it eventually will develop a really big bean on the inside. But it kind of takes it a while to do that. And they're an interesting bean, the rattlesnakes are. I don't really have, let's see, maybe this one. I'm not sure if you can see or not. It has faint little purple markings on it. And I guess that's where the name comes from. But they can be used a variety of ways. They can be used exactly like how I grew up, when you break them up and cook them for a long time as leather britches. They work well as that. We've canned them for 2 years in a row. They work really good as that. They work great roasted, which is what I'm going to share with you today. And then also you can continue to let them grow. I've not done this, but I hope to in the future sometime. Continue to let them grow, and as they do, and that bean gets bigger and bigger, and then when the hull outside the hull, kind of starts deteriorating and kind of getting really tough and rough, then you would either take them off and let them dry, or leave them on the vine and let them dry, and shell them out and use those inside beans as you would dried beans. So I've not done that yet, but I hope to someday. But I have picked some, and today for my dinner, I'm going to make just a quick little batch of roasted vegetables, or roasted green beans. So I might throw some other vegetables on there, but I think it'll just be green beans. And so I'm going to show you how I do that. Now the beans, whether it's rattlesnake beans or greasy beans that we grow, are beans that need to be strung. They have a string on each side, and you have to string them. And then you would break them if you were going to do it like normal. I'm not going to do that today, but sometimes I will go ahead and break this one. They smell so good too. As you break them, people ask me this a lot about the strings. As you break them, sometimes that string don't always come off like you want it to in one big long continuous line. So sometimes as you break them, you can still break a little bit of that off. So that's a tip for that. But I'm just going to quickly string these. Actually, I'm putting them in already. I do that when I string beans. I get my bowls mixed up. I've already got that one mixed up, and I've just started. And I have already give these a quick rinse in the sink. Since they're really young beans, some of them don't have a very, very tough string on them, so some of them's not even stringing at all for me. So I rinsed them off and then patted them dry really good. And I have my oven heating, or it just come to heat. I guess you heard it. beep at me, to 450. That's what I like to roast them at. Now when it comes to actually what you put on them, if you're going to roast green beans or whatever other kind of vegetable you'd like to, it really, the sky's the limit. It's just up to your imagination. Most of the time I'm very simple and I just use salt and pepper. Sometimes we might opt for some garlic powder or something like that. Sometimes oregano, we like oregano, but most of the time I just go for salt and pepper, and that's what I'm doing today. Another thing that I did not grow up with when I was young, growing up here in the mountains of Appalachia, was using any kind of salt except just table salt. I mean, you know, pickling salt, table salt, white salt. I never knew about anything else or never even tried it. In recent years, I have learned about other types of salts, and I found out that I really like, as far as the flavor, and really does have a different type of a flavor, is the Himalayan pink salt. You've probably seen that or heard about it. So I really enjoy it. It can be more expensive, but one tip that I've found in my local area is that I found sometimes the Dollar Tree and like we have, let's see, what's the other? Big Lots. I was trying to think. I wanted to say Bud's. That was one we had a long time ago that used to be where Big Lots is in Murphy. But sometimes those type places have that pure salt, Himalayan pink salt, for cheaper prices than regular grocery stores. So that might be if it is real expensive in your area and you want to try it, that might be a place that you could look at some of the kind of the discount stores. It does, I do believe it has a better flavor, and it also is supposed to have more minerals in it that's supposed to be good for you, so that's another reason. But you can do your own research on that and just use regular table salt. Works perfectly fine. That's one of those things, if you start researching salt, you can go down lots of rabbit holes and find out all kinds of information about it. And I'm not sure where the first place was that I actually tasted it, that I decided I would try buying some and seeing how we liked it. And then I liked it so much I try to keep it now because I really do like the flavor of it. Okay, now that I've got them done, I have some, just a few more. I've got just some olive oil. We keep some in a little squirt bottle just to make it easier to dish out. So I'm going to add some olive oil and kind of toss them around. I have just a baking sheet here. Now if you wanted to, you could line it with parchment paper or something like that just to make cleanup easier, but I'm not going to do that. I see some strings that I've left on all these. And that's one reason a lot of people don't like, they like beans that are stringless, but I guess it's just because that's what I grew up with. I do try to get all the strings, but it doesn't trouble me too much if I don't get them all. When I was young, growing up and having to help string beans, Granny was really picky about her beans, and she wanted to make sure you got in trouble. You know, she'd get on to you if you didn't get all those strings. And then when Corey and Katie come along, and them and my niece April, they would help Granny a lot in the summertime if they were, you know, down there playing. They'd help her break up beans. And one day when I was there, I noticed that she wasn't being real picky about them. And I said something about it. I said, well, you know, you're not making them be as particular as you did me when I was growing up, as you were with me when I was growing up. And she said, well, that's because I'm going to give you these green beans. I said, this is going to be your Christmas present. So she was going to make sure if there's any strings in it, I was the one that was going to have those, which was really funny. Okay, I think I've got them all. So I'm just going to, and the olive oil is kind of up to you. If you do this a few times, then you'll kind of gauge. Like, I don't like a whole lot. I like to just kind of gently coat them. Whatever I'm roasting, if it's potatoes or anything like that, I try to go for less olive oil than more, if that makes sense. And then I'm just going to lay them out. I don't know if you can, I need to move my pan over where you can see a little bit. And again, there's no right or wrong way to lay them out either. You do want them to try to kind of make them individual if you can. One layer, I guess, is the way to say that. Okay, well, let me wash my hands right quick. And then you just, there's one more string. it down there. Season to taste with salt and pepper. If Matt's here, he likes lots of pepper. I like just a little, and then with the salt. And then I'm going to put these in the oven, and kind of the doneness, you know, again, that's just personal preference. I usually go for about 20 minutes. They're tender, but they still have a little bit of a bite. There's some people that really like to, you can see I like salt. There's some people that really like to roast them until they get color on them and get kind of that char. That's good too, but you just have to figure out what works for you. So I'm going to put these in the oven now. Should have throw the little ones I broke up. I'm going to throw those in there too. I didn't even put any oil on them, but they'll be okay. Now while that's roasting, I'm going to clean up my mess, but then I'm going to go out in the yard and see if there's anything else that I can find to go with them for my dinner today. So I still have a lot of the little Matt's Matt's cherries here, so I'm going to get me some of those. They're just like candy. They're so good. And you can see some of them, they're falling as I pick. That's why they volunteer here for me every year. It's just kind of like planting them for next year as they fall. Of course, I could pick them up too. So good. That one's already got a hole in it. Something's been eating on it, so I will throw it down. Here's some more. They're really a prolific little tomato. That one's not quite ripe. I shouldn't have picked it. I'm going to go with my handful of tomatoes. I think I'm going to pick me a few radishes. These up here are the bigger ones. Maybe I'll get that one right there. That should be good. Give my tomatoes a little rinse. These are so tiny and little that they're easy to bust open, but they are so tasty. Now I'm going to clean up my radishes. A lot of people have asked me, don't you eat the greens? And you can eat them, but it's just not something that we really care for. Maybe that's because we grow so many greens that, you know, kind of like you eat what you like. So we've usually got kale and spinach, and even this time of the year, maybe later in the winter, my mustard greens are about that big. But those are the things that we just like better for whatever reason. So we don't really eat these, but although you can, certainly. But who does love them is my chickens, so they don't go to waste. My chickens eat them, and then they, in turn, feed us their wonderful eggs. So I guess, in a way, they're still feeding us. But that's why I typically don't keep them. It's just that it's not something that we care for. We do like greens, but we prefer some of the other ones that we grow. Although, if you were hungry, I sure wouldn't turn them down. So I'll make sure the chickens get those. So I just got them out of the oven. You could, again, roast them longer if you want more color on them. You could also put different spices on them if you don't want, if you want more than salt and pepper. Okay, so I'm ready to get me some for dinner. I have these old, they were actually shortening an ice cream spoon, it says, like for lard, and I can't remember where I got them. I have two of them, but they're really sturdy, I guess, because if you were dipping out the ice cream or the lard, and somehow I always use them for my roasted vegetables. So I'm going to get me some green beans there. I've also got my other things here that I cut up. I've got me some radishes. I love salt on my radishes. I don't know, if you like radishes, do you put salt on them? I've got some of those wonderful little tomatoes. I'm going to eat them. And then I cut my last sugar baby. This is my last one of the season. And it kind of looks like I should have already cut it, but I'm still going to eat it. So I'm going to cut me a little bit of it out and put it on my plate too. I also like salt on my watermelon. I eat too much salt, I guess, but I like it. So I'm going to get me a little bit of that. And give me some salt on radishes and watermelon. So it should be a pretty good dinner. I'm going to taste one of the green beans. Very good. Roasting them somehow brings out a real sweetness. I guess it does that for anything that you roast. And that it's really, they get tender. Even the bean on the inside, because it's so small, gets really tender. It's one of those things, roasted green beans are, that you could almost use as an appetizer or something, because once you start eating them, you just can't quit. Very good. Taste my little radishes. They're good too. I don't like hot pepper, like the hot peppers that Matt loves, the cayennes that we grow. I don't care for anything like that, but I do like the heat of a radish or a nasturtium. They kind of have that heat, or horseradish. Those are the heats that I like instead of the pepper taste like Matt loves. So I hope you enjoyed seeing how I roast green beans. Those early green beans are the best for that. My preferred way of eating them is still that traditional Appalachian method of cooking them for a long time. And then have a pone of cornbread, a cake of cornbread. We would say, a lot of people say pone. That just makes a meal. That's just a feast right there, especially if you add some other fresh things from the garden. You don't even really need any meat. It just is such a great meal, especially, of course, if you do the green beans, though. You can also put bacon or fatback side meat in those while you're cooking them. Ham, that works well too, all those things. So I guess you kind of do have meat. Anyway, green beans are hard to beat if you ask me. So please do drop back by often. Help me celebrate Appalachia, which is a whole lot of Appalachian foodways, and green beans definitely play a huge role in those foodways. So good.